Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to meet you all here and in the middle, rainy and long day, but I hope your expectations will fulfilled. I think you are all like singing, don't you? I hope it. And I would like to ask how many of you sing or used to sing in a choir? Great. And how many of you work as a conductor now or okay? And how many of you work with an amateur choir?
As conductor, you mean?
Yes. And is there anybody who uses the solfa in singing or in the learning the new pieces? 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. I've asked it because the use of the solfa method in an amateur choir is the topic of this demonstration. As Judith mentioned, I have an amateur mixed choir. It's named Erkel Ferenc Mixed Choir. They are different in age. They are from different regions of Hungary and with different professions. And they were taught music very different levels. There are some people who can learn the piece by ear. Others were taught a bit of solfa in the school, and somebody is good at sight singing. There are some people who have been singing for 20 or 30 years in a choir, while others began to sing when they joined this choir. When my father was a child, it's not my father, but when he was a child, he had to cut long grass with scythe. And he told me that there were two kinds of people. Some worked without spending time sharpening the scythe, and they worked all day, and they got exhausted by the end of it. And other people who also worked all day, but they sharpened the scythe regularly. Although they spent some time with it, they could work more efficiently. What's more, they didn't become so exhausted. I think this situation is similar to the use of the solfa method. A choir can sing and learn new pieces without solfa singing very well, but using this method, they can do it easier. They can do it more successful and useful and less exhausting. I was expected to hold a public rehearsal with a solfa method, but I think that the effectiveness of this method can be experienced better watching the whole process of the learning. So that is the reason why I decided to show some original recordings from our last 4 months. They aren't concert recordings, but daily rehearsals of an amateur choir to show you a possible function of this method. There are two kinds of solfa, as you know, the absolute solfa and the relative solfa. I learned the second one because I live in Hungary. It's Kodály's country. But apart from this, I think the relative solfa helps to make a safer sense of a tonality than the absolute one. And it helps to learn the intervals more correctly, and it happens during shorter time than with the help of absolute solfa. We can alter the relative solfa easily. If the music modulates, we can find the certain point where we can change the do and can continue singing according to the new tonality. After all, when I speak about the solfa today, I always refer to the relative solfa. I used to teach new songs my choir by ear, using the whole score immediately as an average choir. Sometimes we sang new pieces without words and only with la la at first, and we added the lyrics only after that. I'm convinced this method is useful, and I use it in my work too, but there might be other profitable and effective ways as well. Some years ago, we were preparing from a choir competition. We chose quite a different piece by Wolf, Ergebung, because we had sung it earlier and liked it very much. But the harmonic varieties by Wolf are very special, and as you know, they're quite difficult of an ear of an amateur singer. So I tried to simplify this situation and made a brief outline of the main harmonic variations of this piece. You can see it in the number 1 in your handout. It contains some difficult phrases and harmonic patterns by solfa syllables, and we began to practice it. I thought I had known my choir, that there were only a few people who could sing by solfa, so I couldn't imagine it could be a good solution for us. But the result was astonishing. Singing the difficult points of the song became better and better, and the choir started to sing more and more in tune. We didn't learn this piece by Wolf by solfa from the beginning. Later, we started practicing in this way. We practiced those parts we had sung out of tune, and it helped us. Let me tell you another example. 5 years ago, in another situation, we were learning the composition of Jakob and Cseri Come Away Death. First of all, we practiced it without any solfa. We were working with the music, words, pronunciation, dynamic signs of the piece a lot. And although we tried to sing the parts both together or separately in tune, it was unpredictable whether it worked well or wasn't really proper. Then about a year ago, when we singing this work again, as I knew it was a difficult piece for us, I tried to practice only the harmonic pattern very slowly, without any rhythm, singing together with piano by playing the actual chords to hear the whole chords. And what's more, during a summer choir weekend, I tried to explain the third related chords of it, and I showed them to the choir. And after these tryings, something became better, and some mistakes were corrected. But there was especially one part of it where only the male choir singing, which couldn't be sung in tune. Let's see the number 2 in your handout. Here the male choir should sing in 3 parts, and each one has quite a difficult melody. At the beginning, each of them has to leap a minor sixth upwards, and we practice this interval with the help of a well-known Hungarian folk song for a while, Cseri. After that, we try to sing only 1 or 2 parts of the 3 ones, and these tryings were neither unsuccessful nor became the final solution. Finally, as I experienced that the solfa helped us to sing in tune better, I tried it with this part too. It wasn't a simple thing because, unfortunately, the male, mainly bass singers were the least able to use the solfa, and because we had to do changing in the solfa in 2 parts. But listen to this process. First of all, when we worked with this piece again, the male choir sang it out of tune. So I made the male members write the solfa syllables under their own part in these bars, and we began to practice it week by week from this January to March. listen to the first time when we sang it by solfa and the tenor first of all. Baritone. And the bass. Tenor and bass. And tutti at first. The same phrase in February. And in March, more in tune the tenor first. Baritone. And the bass. And in the march, finally tutti with the following bars. It was very interesting that they could sing only by solfa for a while, and when I tried to make them sing the lyrics according to the score, it wasn't as successful as by solfa. So it's been a great lesson for me. If we don't learn something in the proper way, the correction can be rather difficult. And I also think if we had learned it by solfa from the beginning, we could sing in tune much more. Let me tell you a story about it. One day in January, two bass singers came to me and said that they had found the same phrase, the same minor six upwards, in the beginning of the Tristan and Isolde prelude of Wagner. And I was happy because it was true, and they found it so skillfully, because of the several rehearsals or in spite of them. So listen to the beginning of the music by Wagner. There is one thing which is the same in the previous two stories. We used the sofa after we had already learned the pieces some years ago, and we used the sofa in order to correct their mistakes. Better late than never. So when I realized it, and I got to know that I would do this workshop, I decided to try this method from the beginning when we start learning some new works the following year and to record it. I chose two pieces by György Orbán. One of them was the Come Away Death. I made an outline of it. You can see it page 3 in your handout. This is a bear score, as a choir member called it. It means that the outline helps to understand the rhythm more clearly than in the score. And as you don't need to listen to the music instructions or lyrics, you can concentrate on the melody only. I use the same rhythm and notes as found in the score, but at certain places I simplified them. I wrote both the sofa syllables and the changing notes precisely, so where it modulated into another key, I signed the difference using a changing note. Before we sang from the score, we had learned it from the outline. You can see and hear some extracts from this period. Listen to the first example, when we were learning the outline to sing by sofa from bar 23. We practiced it by two parts, first of all soprano and alto. Tenor and alto. And from the beginning, tutti. from bar 69 to the end. And finally, one of those situations when we sang the whole piece from the score with lyrics. What I've learned from this process, I think this kind of learning method may seem to take more time because we practice only the outline for a while, and the personal experience of the music may come a bit later. But finally, it wasn't a waste of time. I experienced that the choir sings in tune more safely. They know this piece better, and the difficult phrases and harmonic patterns taught by this method, and much better intonation remains in the singer's mind. Let's see page 4 in your handout. This was the other piece which we learned by so far using an outline from the beginning in this year. I'd like to emphasize the importance of a special phrase from it. From the bar 17, the bass has to sing the same phrase 4 times. It sounds like this: mi, fa, re, mi, mi. The central note of this figure, the mi, and there is a minor second upwards and another one downwards. As we know, we have to sing the minor second, the fa, up enough to be in tune. But I think the re can be more difficult because it can be too high or too low. For example, first by solfa and later lyrics. So in order to prevent this mistake, I made my choir practice the pattern during the warm-ups. Mi, fa, mi, re, mi. And first of all, we sang this phrase with 3 mi. And after that, everybody sang the first and the third loudly, and the second one softer. Later on, the second mi was sang only by me. And finally, we left out this one too, and as a result, the original phrase remained mi, fa, re, mi. This process happened not only once, but for about a month, with weekly repeating. Listen to it. And here is another interesting story which helped our work with this piece. We had already been practicing it for 2 weeks when a singer with 3 children came to me and said that the phrase mi, fa, mi, re, mi could be found in the tale of Niels Holgersson. He showed me the episode and we watched it with the choir too. And some days later, another singer sent me an email with this link. Both examples were very useful for us because the choir listened to this special pattern in other interesting ways, and as a result it was learned better and better. After about 1.5 months, the bass sang this phrase precisely in tune, and since then they have been singing it quite well. We tried not only the solfa method in this work, but the chamber method too. Why do we need it for, and why is it good for us? There are about 50 or 60 members in my choir, and in such a big crowd, a person can be lost. There are always some singers in each part who have stronger voice, and in the shade, some other members might not sing loud and brave enough. So I began to make them sing braver for about 4 months. I divided the whole mixed choir 7 small mixed chamber groups, and sometimes they sang on their own chamber group, or other times 2 or 3 groups together. When we started to practice this work, Nunc Dimittis, we always did it in the mentioned small groups. We were learning this piece exclusively in chamber choirs for 2 months. And we first sang it together with the whole choir at a concert. That was my experience. After some chamber rehearsals, I noticed that I could hear some people's voice louder than ever. And I also realized that singers sang much more actively and enthusiastically than before. So they became braver in this piece. And that was their experience. 50% said that they could hear and direct their own voice much better in small groups. Nobody told that they were too excited singing in small groups, but several singers came to me and said that they enjoyed singing in small groups. Nearly 50% admitted that during singing in small groups they could listen to others much better. Listen to a rehearsal when we were singing the whole work in different small groups. after 2 months practicing the new pieces by Zsófia, I asked the choir to tell me their own opinion about this method. Did it help them or not? Did they learn it easier or not by Zsófia? And they told some interesting and quite different things. The majority of singers learned music under little Zsófia in their childhood. And some of them had to refresh their knowledge of the Zsófia, but after that, this method helped them to sing the new parts and to learn and memorize new melodies faster. There was somebody who was happy with this method because she began to use it alone too. About 6 singers claimed that this method had given them more safety and better knowledge when singing. More than 50% of them said that the outline helped them to get to know the rhythm and the notes of the new pieces much easier than from the score, and helped them to listen to other parts because it's simpler in this way. After learning the outline, the majority could recognize the same phrases in the score easily. But 4 of them refused using the outline because they missed the whole score. They explained to me that for them it was necessary to see the clefs, staves with notes, the melodic line and the lyrics to sing a new pieces. So in their opinion, the outline didn't have them, but none of them was taught singing by Zsófia in childhood. Somebody mentioned when he had learned a piece by Zsófia and we sang it some years later, he would remember the Zsófia better than the lyrics. All things considered, I think the Zsófia isn't a final aim, but a means, and a good and very good means. But we can't forget the fact that this method is useful mainly for those people who've learned it a bit. And I also must admit, those singers who can't use Zsófia easily think that it's not very useful for them, but it still can be useful for them as well, provided they practice it enough. And personally, I'm convinced that if the majority of an amateur choir can use Zsófia a bit, this method is useful for a whole choir, because the Zsófia helps them sing in tune, the Zsófia helps to learn or sing good intervals, and the Zsófia helps to give safer sense of tonality. It's a very good device which we can rely on with new and difficult melodies. And I'm convinced because I've experienced it. And finally, 2 years ago, With a Lily in Your Hand by Eric Whittaker was the first piece which learned by Zsófia from the beginning. When a singer just suggested me that I could teach this work, I didn't believe that we would be able to do it. But using the Zsófia method and practicing its special rhythm a lot, we managed to be successful. Finally, listen to its recording 2 years ago. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day.